Good morning, Shabbat Shalom, I suppose. So I'm going to eat my breakfast, fish and rice, and I will at the same time hold the lecture, the video, the ninth part of the Ziggurat of Ur, my origin story. I hope you're still with me. I think this is going to be an interesting one. But as opposed to the other chapters until now that were either biographical, not only of myself but of my family, my father, my grandfather, my parents, this will be an history of discovery. Both discovery that was done by humans, but is very pertinent to my origin story, and my own discovery, discovery journey that I started in the year 2019, and it still takes place. And of course, part of it is understanding my origin, even though I said many times it was never an important part because of the many reasons that I spoke about during the prelude to this series. That the origin story is not that important. That it's the whole saga is of much lesser important than the political issues and the religious message and the social message. But yes, it's certainly, while I will not speak about my bona fide, my biography, things that happened to me specifically, it will certainly, it's certainly an integral part of my origin story in any kind of sense. First of all, I mentioned I mentioned the year 2019 many times, and my long-time subscribers understand why. But maybe for those that are new, I should say very briefly that during the year 2019. I had a series of events. After a long time, things just didn't seem right in my life. But I understand that many very peculiar things are happening to me. It was during May or June that I fainted at my workplace. I worked at a place called My Heritage, a high-tech company. I worked at Tel Aviv, and I fainted. Took me to the hospital. Yes, I was released the same day. And I had a few days to think about stuff in home quietly, and I understood that I understood that 99.9999% of the times, when you think that everybody is watching you, and that everybody is holding secrets from you, and that you are a center of a worldwide conspiracy, so 99.9999 times, it means that you had a mental breakdown, and you have a kind of like a mental illness, and you need to deal with it through medical courses of action. But it's not correct for 100% of the times. Not 100%, it's not true 100% of the times. And that the only way to start to make sense of my life, to rationally make sense of the evidence that was gathering for many years, and it kept gathering, is to understand that this is my case, and that if I will continue to deny that it's my case, if I will pretend to be crazy or insane, this will be an act of insanity. Because rational thought dictates that the only possible rational explanation for so much evidence that was gathering was that indeed something in that my whole life is a charade, kind of a charade, and people are always hiding things from me, and that I'm under the surveillance of the Israeli intelligence for many years now. And that was the beginning of my journey. It happened in May or June 2019. And I understood that it's going to be a very lonely journey because no one will help me, and I can't speak with anyone, and I still can't speak with anyone. I understood that if I will speak about these things with anyone that I know, the result will be that the social workers will take my children from me, as it eventually happened 7 months ago, and it breaks my heart so much. But it was important for me to raise them. At the time, of course, I raised them in John custody, and this was at least 7 months ago. I raised them after time. They lived with me in my home. That was their home. And I understood that if I speak about it with anyone, this will be the immediate result, that they will take my children from me, and eventually it happened. But after several years. The most obvious thing, I mean, the first thing that I understood is that I'm under the surveillance of the intelligence services of Israel, and it's going on like that for a long time now. And when I understood that, almost immediately I understood other things that I spoke about a lot, many times, so I will not elaborate on it now, because I mean, it's part of the origin story, but it was discussed so many times in so many videos. But I immediately understood that they are defaming me and shaming me, and they are painting me in a very, very bad way. And also that the clients for this purpose of painting is most probably the intelligence service of Israel themselves, but also clients abroad, the intelligence service outside. And that for some reason, and it took me a lot of time this one actually took me years to understand, but I understood that there is, for some reason, the people abroad actually want to believe it, because there is no way that if they wouldn't have like a very strong interest to believe in these lies, there is no way that they would have believed these lies, because I understood that they couldn't really paint me the way that they did, because I understood that there is a huge, unbelievable difference between what I really am and what everybody that knows me know that I am, and between the painting. And it is incredibly easy to see that, I mean, to understand the lies of the Israeli, both by just empirical evidence and also by the internal fractions within the pictures or they paint, which is impossible. And that these things takes place for years because people want to believe that I am what the Israelis tell that I am. I understood it at the same day. All of this was understood at the same day that I understood that yes, something is different about me, and the intelligence is following me. But I also understood immediately is that there is a strong relation between the Israeli intelligence, possibly other intelligence services, but certainly the Israeli intelligence, and the phenomenon of homosexuality and pedophilia. And I understood it immediately. Now, for many people in the Israeli intelligence, of course I wrote about, the way for me to document my thought at the day was to write things and to send it to myself in the mail. And I knew that people are watching my mail, so, and it was intentionally done so. I call it my blog. It wasn't really a blog, but it was all sort of notes that I've written to myself. In hindsight, I should say that they were written in a too literary fashion, I would say. Today, if it were today, today I just speak from my heart without planning. But then, I mean, I took a lot of time to actually write each post in a very stylistic way for all sorts of reasons. And now I understand that, I mean, it's like teaching pigs rocket science. Like, I mean, who do you think reads these blog posts? Probably no one. And if someone reads it, it's probably also like, I mean, barely human, like subhuman creatures of the Israeli intelligence. That anyway. So I've written about those stuff, and I understood it from their perspective, that the fact that I understand that they are pedophiles, and that there is such a strong relationship between the Israeli intelligence and the phenomenon of pedophilia was kind of like a proof that I must be part of an intelligence association, either I'm part of the Israeli Intelligence Association, or I relate to another intelligence association, because presumably otherwise, how could I have done? I've discovered such a huge secret. But what they thought of such a huge secret was actually something that I understood on the same day that I started my journey, because it was so obvious. Because I have something that is called memory. I reminiscent about many things that happened to me throughout my life, and many people that I spoke with, and understood that that I was surrounded by intelligent cells all my life, and it was extremely obvious to understand that they are homosexuals and pedophiles, and this is something that is intrinsic to the Israeli intelligence. If you want examples, like specific examples of why it was so simple to understand it, I've already spoken about it, among other, in a series of posts that I called The Warlock of Firetop Mountain. And it was published in my Evernote. I really like this series, actually, from 2 years ago, or something like that. But it's in Hebrew, so if there is a grand demand, I can like repost it in English. I think that it's really very good, saga, the saga of the Warlock of Firetop Mountain, from 2 years ago. And so, among other things, I discussed like the evidence. I placed some evidence of why I immediately understood that these people are pedophile homosexuals. The Warlock of Firetop Mountain. Yes, I started like with the video recording sagas not yesterday, not only in YouTube. As I said before, this YouTube channel, I posted in Facebook and Twitter and in my Evernote account. So yes, one of my favorite sagas, I think, that I myself recorded, is called The Warlock of Firetop Mountain. It's based on borrowing the name of the title of You Are the Hero, the first, or one of the first, probably the first You Are the Hero book of Steve Jackson. And it's a very nice series, I think, because it discusses both my thoughts or during the time, the discovery, the beginning of the discovery, and also I discuss religious and theological issues that are very important and pertinent, and are also very important to my origin story. But I don't want to discuss it now, because even though it's certainly part of the origin story, but like my connection to God and my reevaluation of my connection to God, and change of heart, and the conversion to Protestant Christianity. But again, I've already spoken about it, and I don't feel the urge now to reiterate. what I want to do now is speak actually about news things that I haven't spoken about in the past. But I mean, if there is a great demand, I can like repost it as part of this series. I can like repost the work of Fire Top Mountain, but now do it in English, because I am almost certain. Yes, I'm certain it was. I recorded it in Hebrew. At the time I recorded only in Hebrew. So maybe it's kind of like an excuse to repost it, but it's good as it is, and I really recommend you to, if any one of you you are interested in my own life and my own like whereabouts. I mean, this is, I think, one of the best series that I recorded, the Warlock of Fire Top Mountain, from about 2 years ago. But again, now I want to focus on things that I haven't spoken about in the past, kind of like new material, I would say. And which is my relationship to the planet Venus. And I understood that all those homosexuals and pedophiles, that they have wives and partners, and that these partners are not only actors. So I thought maybe they are actors, but I understood that they live with them for many years, and they can't have sex with them. So I thought that at the moment, for a time, I thought that maybe, I mean, it's an extreme theory, but I mean, I've thought about all sorts of like things, like theories. I thought maybe, I mean, that is part of like, I mean, part of what the evil like intelligence agencies of the world is doing is to infect like women with all sorts of diseases. So I thought maybe like Israel is kind of like the trash can of this woman. That I mean, I thought maybe it was like during the Cold War or later. I don't know, up to the 90s or so. And like, I mean, the time they thought, okay, maybe we should stop that. And there, I mean, the people all over the world became more enlightened and stopped infecting women like agents with diseases. But there were still many women with diseases. So all of them, I mean, they decided that all of these women will find like a shelter in Israel, and they will live with these homosexuals and pedophiles, and this will be like, I mean, the arrangement. I know it's ridiculous, and it's kind of it's got like many. It doesn't make sense for many reasons, but I thought, I mean, when you know nothing, you postulate all sorts of theories. But actually, this theory, as ridiculous as it might sound, and of course it's not correct, some elements of this theory, I mean, are in a way touching the truth. I mean, it's not a correct theory, but you must admit that there is some kind of like, I mean, I just present this false theory, you know, in order for you to understand that things didn't come to me like, I mean, like, it's not that, I mean, you know, like the prophet Gabriel dictates Muhammad the Quran. It was a process of gradual thinking and learning and understanding and investigation, and the process also included what I call divination, which is a kind of way to understand things about reality that is outside the boundary of, I would say, scientific inquiry. And it is something that, I mean, you do with the help of God, but it's not alien to scientific inquiry. It goes hand in hand with scientific inquiry and rational thought. Now, how actually it takes place, I mean, how can you reconcile divination, which is presumably spiritual and like out of this world, with scientific and rational inquiry, which presumably is something completely secular? So this was one of the issues of the blog, of what I call the blog, which is a series of notes that I've written in Hebrew during the year 2020, mostly 2020, or maybe also 2021, and I sent it to myself in Gmail with the hope that someone is reading it, and some of it was actually reposted in Facebook actually, so maybe it's open to the public until this day. So, but it was very elaborated and very, as I said, very stylized, and like, I mean, every post I spent a lot of time writing each of these posts, and it's kind of like, I mean, it's not like it's not the way that I post today. That of course it's written, it's different to write than to speak, but it's also, I mean, that I speak just from the heart, and I speak very, you know, I don't seem to almost never before I start like just speaking in any of these videos, but and in the writing it was, I mean, I refined it and re-edited again and again because I had different kind of like, I mean, I had a different attitude towards conveying information back in the day. But yes, a lot of what's actually the main subject of this blog is actually to try to explain and not and following other people like Maimonides and very important. There was a very before the Rambam Maimonides, there was a very important scholar named Al-Farabi. He predates him not by much, and actually Maimonides knew about him and appreciated and written very high praise about him. He was a Muslim scholar. I don't know how many like Muslims today actually are aware of him, but I mean, he was in the past. He was extremely important as like a philosopher. So he also wrote about like about these issues of like divinations, and he and also Maimonides, but they both of them actually wrote about this like, I mean, how can you reconcile divinations with rational thought? Because both of them were like, in the opinion, I mean, that, I mean, yes, you can actually reconcile it, and that it's not like, it's not alien to, I mean, like, the divinations are not alien to scientific inquiry. Of course, they didn't have exactly the same understanding of what this means and scientific inquiry is today, but they had that. It was close enough. I mean, basically, it's the same thing. Al-Farabi. So, also following these people, I try to explain how can you reconcile it. And again, I don't want to. Maybe it's, for the new listeners, it could be very interesting. Like, how is it? I mean, on the one hand, you seem. I mean, you sound like so like rational, and you know, we are watching you doing like science in your own small room with microscopes and like and theories, and then they speak about superconductors, and then you present theories and falsify them or verify them. And on the other hand, you say that you had divination. So how can you reconcile them? These presumably two alien worlds. So this was what I don't want to see right now, because again, it was a major answer to this question was a major part of my written notes that I now call the blog from 2020-2021. And these notes are written in Hebrew, and I admit it's going to be very easy, difficult to translate it to English, because it's written in a poetic, intentionally poetic way. Not that I mean everything can be translated. If Shakespeare could have been translated, or the Bible could be translated, my note can also be translated. I don't think that I'm like that I write in a more stylized ways than Shakespeare, or Jorge Luis Borges, or you know, Jeffrey Chaucer. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, who if there is anyone that will actually like take the effort to do it. I mean, inside intelligence organizations that, I mean, everything they like to do is quick and dirty. And I'm not going to translate it myself, so it's going to be kept like the way it is in Hebrew. Sorry about it, but yes, it was a major issue, and written about it extensively, about these kind of reconciliations. And I mean, just take it now for granted that that's the way it was, and it still is to a great extent. I understand that these women do not have sex with their husbands or friends or anyway male companions, and the theory just doesn't hold. I mean, that doesn't make sense. That, I mean, all of them just, I mean, they came from outside of Israel to Israel. I mean, to be, because even if it were true, it can be true just only for one like point in time. But I mean, I understood that these kind of women are, I mean, I can see them in all sorts of ages, and I understood that they are part of my family. All the women, like, and also a young woman that I meet at the workplace, and understood that all of them are of the same type, and it was a major question. Who are these? What are these women? Okay, I understood the males are. I understood what. I still had questions about the nature of the men that up to this now I don't know the answer like in its entirety, but it doesn't really matter, and it's the question of where did they born? Like, are they Israeli from birth, as almost all of them like tribe? But I understood that it could be fake biography, or maybe another option that I thought about is that there is that kind of like, and this is something that I still believe that was true for a long time. It was a major sin, that there was kind of like a habit of many countries in this world, and specifically in the West, to send like young pedophiles to Israel, and then to supply them with fake biographies, and then so they will be part of the Israeli intelligence. And I still believe in this theory very strongly, and I think that this is a major sin. And that is it's a huge sin, because you need to take care of your trash inside your own like house. You cannot throw all the trash to the trash can of the neighbor. And this was the great sin of the world, because of course these people, what do you think that these people was? They became, they don't have any loyalty at all. They were born in different places, and they were kicked out of their own societies, and so they are only loyal, to money and to the sword. And I still believe that this is true, and this is a great sin. But it's not mutually exclusive with other theories that some of them were actually born in Israel, and also something that I thought, and I think that it's also these stories are not mutually exclusive. That there is kind of like a pedophile exchange network inside NATO, including Israel. That kind of like they switch pedophile agents between them inside NATO, including in plus Israel. So so like people from all over, from like pedophile agents from all sorts of like places are creating cells in other countries, and this is done because the various intelligence agencies they want to have like cells, even though the host country know about the existence of these cells, but presumably they still need it. They still need these people. It's certainly true. It's certainly true about the Americans and the Russians that they require like presence of their own people in Israel for a long time, and that not all of these people are actually what we call spies. That some of these people actually, the Shabak know that that's what they are, but and the Americans know that the Shabak knows. It's like it's done, all of this done knowingly by both like the Americans and the Russians and the Israelis, but still it's something that they need in order to facilitate all sorts of like operations that are created by people of the intelligence community, because the diplomacy, parts of diplomacy and part of international relationships is done by agents of intelligence agencies. And this is not a new thing. It was like that for hundreds of years. And in the past, in Europe, it was done by diplomats. But today, it's more complicated. The issue of it's more difficult, because diplomats they still exist, but it's kind of like mostly it's kind of like diplomats are just to be a diplomat is just coming in place. You just come like a job that very short term, like for 2 years or 3 years, and then you fly to Japan or to New Zealand or whatever. And there is no kind of like there is today nowadays we don't have like in our world the formal institution of permanent diplomat, as it were, like in European, like Age of Enlightenment and like 18th century, 19th century, that of permanent diplomats that live permanent in another state. We don't have this kind of like institution. So I understood that maybe a replacement of this institution is the institution of kind of like spy cells, but that are not spies in a way that they don't. The host country knows that they represent other countries. They are kind of like diplomats, even though no one knows it. Like in secrecy. So I understood that for certain the Russians and the Americans require such cells in Israel, again, with the knowledge of the Israelis, not like, I mean, it's kind of like, I mean, this like under the nose of the Shabak, with the knowledge of the Shabak, and I understood that maybe many of these are actually homosexuals and pedophiles, and that were born, of course, not in Israel, and they have fake biographies. This is also a theory, and again, all these theories are not mutually exclusive. Probably reality is a combination of all of these theories. But there is always, whatever theory that you ask, there is still the question of who are the women? What woman will agree to this shitty life? And even if, I mean, the theory of that, I mean, they were all infected with disease, but I mean, later were, I mean, found shelter in Israel, doesn't make sense because, I mean, this could have happened only if there was one point that, I mean, many actually immigrated to Israel. And actually, as I said, even this theory is as ridiculous as it might sound, it contains all sorts of like bits that are somehow what are true, because actually there was a time during the 80s of a great immigration into Israel, following a destruction of the Israeli intelligence. And this relates to the bicycle saga, but it's kind of like, I didn't speak about it because, I mean, on the Bicycle 201 series, because it was a long series anyway, and I don't want to speak about it now because, again, I want to focus on my origin story. I can't speak about everything. There are so many things to speak about. So actually, I mean, many parts of the theory of the infectious disease, and it's true that they are also, I mean, it's true that these women are also infected with a serious disease. I mean, so many parts of these theories are actually true. But of course, the theory in itself is not, it doesn't make sense because it's something that is ongoing. We see, we see more and more of these women, like, I mean, in different ages. So how is it, so it's not, it doesn't make sense. So again, I mean, 99.99999% of the times when you have an explanation, a phenomenon that you don't have any explanation for, and you start to think maybe the explanation is aliens, so 99.99999% of the times you are just wrong, because there is a much simpler explanation that you are just not aware of, and you are too inclined to think about aliens because you like science fiction. But it's not correct 100% of the times. So let me just finish my breakfast, and I will continue in a bit.